friends, it's Susanna. I'm here to share a mixed media process video with you today, and I'll admit I have been out of my mixed media game for almost a month now, so I felt a little rusty when I was filming this video. The end layout honestly isn't my absolute favorite, but I really do like the way it turned out, and I'm not really a white space type of mixed media artist, so it was a challenge for me to use white space in this. You'll see that on one side I did a little better than on the other side of the page, but either way, I'm pretty satisfied, and I just thought I would turn this into a process video so that you can see how I do my mixed media pages. So I'm using a Dylusions art journal. This is the small size, and you'll see me just doing a little prep to my pages. So I use really cheap paintbrushes for my gesso, and I'm putting white gesso on the page just to do a little prep. These pages are thick, but I like to add the gesso just in case. Um, the paintbrushes that I use, I have used for a very long time, and they've kind of hit their last leg. So you'll see I'm struggling. I keep going back and forth between the two, but they're creating like these weird streaks because they're all crunchy and like gross. So I just wet my paper towel a little, and sorry for my head. And I'm going over the gesso just to smooth it out so that I don't have a bunch of paintbrush lines in it. And you'll probably see my head a little bit in this video. I'm not using my normal setup. I'm at my mom's house, so I just put a trash bag and then a poster board down on her table. So if you don't have a dedicated art space, you can totally just do this at your dining room table, just like I'm doing here. And I use an Illustrated Faith Bible journaling mat so that I don't get too much like bleed through onto past pages. Sometimes with the liquidier, the like looser mediums, they can get through the cracks of the pages and get a color that you didn't want on a previous page. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm drying it because I'm super impatient. And let's see what I can tell you. So I do have some baby wipes handy. So if you are just getting into mixed media, always have baby wipes handy. They're super useful. So this is something that I usually do before I put gesso on my page. I put a piece of washi tape on the crease because, like I said, I've had a lot of issue with bleed through in this journal. It's my absolute favorite art journaling journal, but I will say that, like most books, it's pretty hard to prevent unless it has that piece of tape right there in the crease. So I just put that down, and then I put some gesso over it, and usually I use a light color or like a neutral color. And this time, I don't know why, I had this washi tape handy, and I really actually like the washi tape. I put a dark washi tape, and in the final result, you can actually see the washi tape still. It doesn't bother me, but if that's something that would bother you, just keep that in mind. You may want to use one that's more of the color of your page. So now I'm just picking paint colors. I use all sorts of different brands of paints and mediums, and just everything that I use all different brands. Some are expensive, some are cheap. The ones I'm picking out now, I have a mini Heidi Swapp Color Shine right there, and then two little pods, or what would you call those? Two little pots of acrylic paint from Target, and those are like $1.99 each. So those are actually some of my absolute favorites. So if you have a Target near you and you're just getting started, acrylic paint from Target is a great option. I use a little palette knife to pull some out of the pot and put it on a card, and then I'm just using this scraping technique to spread this olive green color all across the card, all across the page, sorry. I'm fumbling over my words a lot today. It's been a while since I've done a voiceover, so you'll have to forgive me. So now I'm using, you can't see because I'm out of frame, but I was using my journal that I just put. It's an art journal. That one is a Moleskine watercolor journal that I use as an art journal, and I use the extra stuff in that journal. Does that make sense? So if you watch Inky Quill, she calls it a use it up journal. I subscribe to someone else that calls it a, what does she call it? I think she just calls it like a generic extra paint journal. So there are all different types of things you can call that, but I basically just put my extra product in that journal, and then eventually you create backgrounds from adding all of your extra product together. So now I'm just drying it because, again, I'm impatient. And throughout the thing, you'll see me, throughout the video, throughout the video, you'll see me picking out colors. I'm trying to go for more of a like fall-esque color scheme with this one, and it's a little bit out of my typical range of colors, but I really love the palette that I chose. So this is a Target paint color. Oh, I was just giving a thumbs up because I was like, oh yes, this is such a pretty color. It's like a copper color. I can't remember the exact name. It might just be called copper, from Target, and it is so pretty. It turns out super iridescent, but not like overwhelmingly coppery, if that makes sense. Either way, it's beautiful and I love it. I'm sure you'll be seeing it in a lot of process videos coming up. Drying, 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 and then what am I going to do next? I just filmed this. I don't know how, I can't remember what I did next. Oh, that's right. Okay, so now I'm tearing off a piece or a couple pieces of tissue paper. And this is actually tissue paper that came in one of my Felicity Jane kits. So just keep tissue paper from presents that you receive, from presents that you wrap to give. If you have extra, keep that around. It always comes in handy. So I'm just tearing little bits and pieces off and placing it randomly throughout the layout. And then I'm going to use some matte medium to adhere that to the page. And one thing that I will recommend is if you're new to art journaling or mixed media, use a very loose hand with everything you do. So this is the way that I get things to come out more of like a natural, I don't know how you would explain it, a natural, like, didn't try too hard kind of look, is because I use a very loose hand, almost as though I'm like a little kid. So I hold my paintbrush very loose and I just kind of like flop it around. It sounds terrible, just like flopping your paintbrush around, but it's like intentional flopping. And see how I'm just kind of like going at it, and wherever that tissue paper landed, that's where it was going to end up. I'm not too intentional about anything, because then you get a really fluid and imperfect look. And I think that that's one of the charming things about mixed media, is that look of imperfection, especially if you're someone like me and one of the reasons you do mixed media is to help you overcome that need to be perfect all the time. That's definitely something I struggle with. So using a loose hand just helps keep in my mind that like it doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. It's more for the process than it is for the product for me. So I just use some matte medium to put that down, and then I'm drying it to make it go a little faster. And then I thought I had another note to tell you, but you know what? My brain is just clearly not allowing me to remember. So I'm using that Heidi Swapp Color Shine now. I just use a piece of paper and kind of block the mist that can, because they mist really far. Does that make sense? So they mist really far. I used a piece of paper to block any like extra mist that goes out and around the page, so it doesn't get all over everything. Now I'm trying to add water, but my spray bottle is empty and I'm being lazy and just trying to do it without. It's not working, if you couldn't tell. And usually I don't use, in the beginning you may have seen me pour bottled water into that little thing that I'm using to clean my brushes. Usually, no, I do not use bottled water to do mixed media, but it's something that I just had on the table next to me and I was being lazy. So I filled up my spray bottle with um, that same bottled water, and then I just added a little bit to the Heidi Swapp Color Shine, and now I'm tilting the journal to give it some drippy, runny effects. I really love that deep blue. I think that's navy, the color of the Color Shine. It's called navy. And then I'm going to take a tissue or a paper towel and I'm going to wrap it around a card and kind of tap the crease of the journal just so that it doesn't pool there and look like it was an unintentional pooling of color shine. So I just did it very lightly so that everything that went there naturally would be left, but anything that I accidentally pushed over there would come up. And I should have given a forewarning that I'm really, really bad at describing things. So if you're listening to me and you're like, whoa, what is she even talking about right now? Just mute me and watch the video and make up your own process. You could probably tell what I'm doing easier than you can if you're listening to these words that I'm saying that don't make any sense. Anyway, okay, so now I'm drying, always drying. And you'll see at this stage, I have like a lot of white space around the edges, and I'm feeling really good about that. I'm like, yeah, trying something new, I'm doing it, and then it kind of doesn't work after this right here. So I just use a baby wipe and I put a little bit of acrylic paint, it's a gray color, on the tip of my finger, and I'm doing little smudges around the page. And they're turning out really cute at first, and then you'll see now, am like spreading it all over the place, covering all of the white space. I don't really know what I was thinking. But again, I'm not used to using white space, so then here I was like, wait a second, don't do that, don't do that. And then I left the right side as it was. These are the conversations that I have with myself while I'm creating. I'm like, wow, this is gonna look so good. And then I stop and I'm like, what are you doing, Susanna? So that's okay though. Now I'm gonna take a bright teal color acrylic paint and I'm just gonna put it on a little brush and do some little lines around the place, all over the place. I can't talk today. I've been home with the cats all day, so it's just been me and them and I. Told you I can't talk. They don't judge me if I don't form proper sentences, so I just kind of talk to them, and however it comes out, it comes out. Now I feel like there's a little bit more pressure. That's probably why I can't talk, because of the pressure. Anyway, so I'm doing little dashes around the page, and you'll see that that's kind of one of the main themes of this page are those little dashes or lines of different colored paints, and that's actually one of my favorite things to do. I think that it's a really great way to bring different colors together and see how they interact. And since I do art journaling for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because I love creating color palettes. So doing those little dashed lines allows me to see the color palette that I've created come to life and see how the colors work together, and I really like that. So now I'm drying before I add the next color. I do a lot of drying, but I'm impatient, and the thought of even waiting for that paint to dry naturally or like with the air, oh my gosh, I just can't. No, thank you. So then I thought about using that fan brush, and then I got scared and I backed down. I was like, nope, nope. So then I just grabbed this little brush and I was going to do some white little dashes. And then I was like, be bold, Susanna. So I started doing these squiggly lines, and I actually really love the way they turned out. So try new things. I'm just kind of squiggling them all over the place. And then I think, what do I do next? I think I'm going to add some detail to those squiggly lines. Of course, I'm going to dry in between because, oh my goodness, in one of the upcoming clips for this video, you'll see I didn't dry in between, and it kind of turns into a miniature disaster. Not a full-blown disaster, just a miniature disaster. So now I'm grabbing a stencil. I don't remember who this stencil is by, but it is just one that, it's like a main stencil brand, but I picked it up at Tuesday Morning the other day, and then I'm using a palette knife with some gold modeling paste. This is from Brie Reese. Yeah, I think it's Brie Reese. You can get it at Hobby Lobby. I really love the color gold. It's like a matte gold, so it's not too shiny and in your face. So then I'm like pointing to him, like, what did I do? I got my finger all up in the white and the stencil all in the white paint. And then I transferred the white paint from one side to the page to the other, and I was like really frustrated. But I think I end up covering it up in a way that works for me, at least. Like I said, I try to not be too like nitpicky about those things, because for me it is about the process and not the end product. The process is really relaxing to me, and of course I love seeing a beautiful end product, but if I can overcome the challenge of something not being perfect, like that mess that I just made, I think that's more of a success than seeing a beautiful end product. So that's just a little note if you're doing it for the same reason that I am. So I'm doing a little bit of cleanup, because if you don't clean your stencils right away, that modeling paste will cake onto your stencil and it will be a nightmare to get off. And if you're anything like me, you don't have the patience and you'll just want to throw your stencil away. That's a waste of money. So I've learned the hard way to just grab a baby wipe and clean your stencil off ASAP. And then I am using my heat gun over my modeling paste. So some people will tell you that you shouldn't do this because it makes the modeling paste puff. And that's true. So the modeling paste will expand with the heat. It'll get a little bit larger and puffier, but I don't mind. I think it adds character to the layout. And now I'm just doing some shaking of some Heidi Swapp Color Shine. This is in a really pretty coral color, and I'm lightly misting that all over the page. Again, blocking the extra mist from going all over my table with that piece of paper. And the Heidi Swapp Color Shine in the coral color, at least mine, comes out more of like little dots than like a fine mist. And the navy is more of a fine mist. So even though they're the same brand, the sprayer works differently on them. So I just encourage you to try out your sprayers and see if they work differently. Does that, yeah, try out your sprayers. That's an odd thing to tell someone. But different bottles or different bottles, even if they're by the same manufacturer, may spray differently and create different effects for your page. That's what I'm trying to say. Whew, it's coming together, guys. My sentences are getting easier. So now I'm just pulling out a few colors of paint pens. My favorite paint pens are the Liquitex paint pens. They come in 2 different sizes, so you can get the skinny ones, they're the ones that I'm using, and then you can also get the fat ones, which I don't have one in this video, but in future videos I'm sure you will see those. And I'm just adding a little bit of a scribble in a burnt sienna color to the white wave that I added, the white squiggle. And again, I'm using a really loose hand and doing those very just how they come out and letting my hand do the shaping of the line rather than my mind. And then I'm adding a light pink dash to each of those little turquoise lines. And that just acts as a little highlight so that those turquoise dots or lines or dashes, whatever you want to call them, pop a little bit more. And now I'm grabbing mystery. What am I grabbing? There I am. I really liked the way that light pink looked with the other colors in the layout, so I grabbed a light pink paint, and I'm going to add a little bit more of that color throughout, just again with those little lines. And this brand is of paint, I believe is called like Cream Coat or Cream Base. I think it's Cream Coat. Yeah, that sounds right. I get it from Hobby Lobby. I can't find it at Michael's or Joann's, so if you're looking for them, check Hobby Lobby. But out of those little tiny like not art store, like art supply store, like the chains, the paints that they sell, that's my favorite brand. I know that they have a ton of different brands these days. That Cream Coat is my favorite. It's really opaque and it works really well for mixed media. So I'm also using a navy color of those Liquitex paint pens, and I'm just adding some squiggly lines with little like flowery things off the top. And that's just to add another shape to the layout. And then I really wanted to bring in more of the copper color, so I added a little bit of that copper paint with water and I mixed it up, and now I am using a paintbrush to splatter it around the page. And be careful, I'm wiping it off the table right now. I got it everywhere, so that little paper trick didn't do very much for me this time. And then I'm drying that, and I think I'm getting close to the end here. I'm just going to decide what quote, because if you follow me on Instagram, you probably see that a lot of my art journaling pages end with a quote. And this one I decided to keep really simple and just use a little phrase that's been on my mind a lot recently and that's been helping me through this busy season of life. And if I ever stop drying the page, we'll see. Come on. My heat gun is my best friend. I'm one of those people that I turn my heat gun on, and if it's too cold in my apartment, I just like heat gun my legs and my hands. Okay, here I am, just adding in very small, simple text the phrase keep going in a white gel pen. And I'm keeping it super simple. Like I said, this has just been on my mind. It's what I felt before when I started this page. I wasn't satisfied with the way it was going. I just told myself, keep going, figure out what you're doing, and just embrace it. So, I was like, what am I doing? I don't see anything coming out because it's white and it's hard to see from a distance, but I am drawing a squiggly, loose white border around the page to kind of make everything come together and hold it all in and make it feel like it's one. And that will finish off this layout. So I'm going to show you an up close look. And like I said, when I started out, I wasn't crazy about this, but the more I look at it, the more I really like it. And I love that little tiny phrase right there, just in the center. It's the perfect size. I don't know. I just really love the way it turned out, even though it was off to a weird start. So I will see you guys again soon. And until then, thanks so much for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you. Bye bye.